What's going on, guys? Austin Zaback here. In today's video, we're going to be talking about whether or not you should buy a home in 2021 and beyond. And there's a lot of crazy stuff going on right now, so I'm really excited for the video. I'm actually a real estate agent. I'm also a real estate investor. You know, I look at the market every day. I look at the graphs every day. I talk to buyers every day, talk to sellers every day, I talk to investors every day, I talk to renters every day. And it is really, really interesting what is going on in the market. It's really interesting what's gone on in 2020. I think it'll be really interesting for what is to come in 2021, and I'm excited to jump right into the video. I would really appreciate it, by the way, if you would take just a quick second and just smash the like button for the YouTube algorithm. It would mean the entire world to me. Also, at any point throughout the video, drop a comment down below. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to hear your thoughts, your feelings, your opinions. So let's just go ahead and dive into it. So 2020 has been a heck of a year. We've seen just about everything. We've seen, obviously, the CARES Act, multiple $trillion bill get passed. We've also seen, as it kind of pertains to the real estate market and the housing market, we've seen forbearance basically come to fruition, right? We've seen, millions and millions of people in forbearance, which basically just means that they're not having to pay their mortgage. We've also seen the moratoriums, the eviction moratorium and the foreclosure moratorium, meaning that there are millions and millions of people in 2020 that are behind on their mortgage payments and that haven't been paying rent, but have not gotten foreclosed on and have not gotten evicted. We've also seen in 2020 interest rates essentially come to an all-time low, or at least the lowest they've been in a very long time, below 3% on your primary residence. Okay, if you're watching the video, I'll assume that you're considering buying a house, and I'll assume that you're considering buying it as your primary residence. Obviously, if you're buying an investment property, then interest rates will always be a little bit higher than if you're buying for your primary. But we're just gonna kind of break everything down and whether or not 2021 is gonna be a good year. I mean, is the housing market actually gonna crash? If it does, what does that mean if you're buying a home? And really overall, should you go out of your way to buy a home? Or if you've already been thinking about buying a home, or maybe your job relocated, or whatever the case is, then, is it safe, I guess I should say, to buy a home? Now, I'll just go ahead and start by saying that nobody's got the crystal ball, and if you're listening to anybody on YouTube that claims that they know what is going to happen, then I highly encourage you to stop listening to that person, because nobody knows for sure. But I'm gonna take a stab at it from all of the experience and expertise that I do have. So look, at the end of the day, I do think that if you have a reason to move, okay? If you have a reason to move, you have a reason to go somewhere, right? Like, let's just say your job relocated, your family is elsewhere, you're downsizing, whatever the case is. If you have a reason to move, and if you are making steady income and you don't see that changing in the near future, and you've got a good credit score, you can, qualify for a very low interest loan, okay, over a 30-year fixed mortgage, then I think that you can probably buy. Right now, there are other variables. You've got to look at, where are you going? Are people moving into that area? Is it an area where, people are putting in new freeways? And overall, that area is a growing area. It isn't decreasing, but it is increasing, right? What does that look and feel like? Because that will play a role in it. Over the next 5 or 10 years, do people want to live in the area that you're planning on moving, or maybe not? And those are just some simple variables, before I kind of move on, that I definitely think you should look at. I mean, I really think you should ask yourself that. But kind of what I was saying is, look, if you can get a low interest loan, you're moving into an up and coming area where, in theory, property values, would continue to go up, assuming some major event didn't occur, okay? Then I think overall, and by the way, you're planning on staying there for, 5 or 10 years, then I think you can absolutely buy, right? You can buy, because typically in any real estate market, you gotta remember, I mean, again, I'm talking very basic level here, but if interest rates are low, typically prices are gonna be high. And if prices are low, typically interest rates are gonna be high, right? So if your main focus is on your monthly payment, right? You're just looking at your monthly payment and you're saying, okay, look, I can pay $1,500 a month, or I can pay $2,000 a month, or $2,500 a month, or whatever the number is, and that's your main focus, right? And you're not buying a house to necessarily make a profit, right? You're buying a house to live in, to get as low of a monthly payment as possible. Then I do think 2021 could be a fabulous year to buy, because interest rates are obviously at an all-time low, right? You will always run the risk when you buy in a market like this, going into 2021, that the market doesn't do so hot over the next couple of years. But again, if you plan to stay there for a long period of time, then I don't see a huge issue with that. Now, we want to talk about a couple of other things though, kind of going into, these kind of uncertain times. We've really got to look at some of the different markets. Even if it doesn't pertain to real estate, it all factors into one big conglomerate kind of crap show, if you want my actual opinion. But look, the stock market's at an all-time high. It really doesn't have any reason to be at an all-time high. Okay, you've got over 10 million people unemployed. Just to kind of compare and contrast for you, had about 10 million in 2008, right after the market crashed, or when the market was crashing, I guess. So you've got about 11 million people now that are unemployed. So that doesn't really look good. Okay, the Fed is printing money like it's going out of style. I mean, the national debt is ticking up at an incredibly fast rate right now. Interest rates are at an all-time low, and we're passing, stimulus relief bills, kind of left and right. I mean, really, I guess you just had the CARES Act, but it was a multiple trillion-dollar bill. We just had almost a trillion-dollar bill get passed as of like maybe a day or so ago. So there's a lot of things to look at. Now, again, we've also got to look at supply and demand. Demand is at an all-time high, as you would assume it would be, right? Because interest rates are at an all-time low. So you've got a ton of people that are refinancing their mortgage to get a lower payment, a lower monthly payment, or to pull cash back out and do renovations to the property, or ultimately to maybe pay their mortgage if they did lose their job or something like that with the cash they're pulling back out. But you've also got a large amount of millennials moving into the market to buy, and the Gen Zers, right? There's this massive wave of millennials and Gen Zers that are all buying at the same time with the low interest rates. Also, new builds are, not able to keep up with the demand because lumber's expensive and labor's expensive, which you would kind of figure, I suppose, with the pandemic. But you've got to look at all these different variables, and then you've got to say, okay, well, supply's at an all-time low, or has been really the whole year, due to the fact, again, a lot of reasons, but simply put, sellers don't want to sell, right? Why would you want to sell in the middle of a pandemic, especially during the holidays, during Christmas, Thanksgiving, Halloween, everything like that, and during a pandemic, okay? So people don't want to move unless they have to move, right? Well, anytime you have demand really high and supply really low, it's going to cause prices to do what? Just to pretty much continue to go up. So there's so many variables. Here's what I wouldn't do, okay, to kind of wrap everything up. I wouldn't go buy a home just to buy a home. If you want to move, if you need to move, if you're looking to downsize, if you're paying a bunch of money in rent maybe, but ultimately you have a secure job, or you've got a side hustle or whatever, which I recommend, by the way. So if you don't watch my other videos, definitely subscribe and watch my other videos. It would mean the world to me at the very least. But maybe I know I've got a lot of friends that they pay $3,000 a month in rent, or $2,500 a month in rent, and I'm like, look, if you can afford to pay your rent every month, you'd be able to afford to pay a mortgage every month. So you may as well at least buy a house on the sole premise that you may as well pay down a mortgage on your property with really low interest rates, as opposed to just like giving the money away, right? So on that premise, it makes all the sense in the world to buy a home, but it doesn't make sense to buy a home if you have an unsteady income, you're not sure what the future has in store in terms of your job, maybe you don't have much money saved, you can't afford to make a down payment, things of that nature, right? There's these scenarios where you don't want to just be a part of the hype to be a part of the hype. And I know that's probably contradicting to what you'd expect like a normal like real estate agent or realtor or investor to say, but look, my business ultimately at the end of the day isn't going to be affected on whether or not you do or don't buy a home in 2021. I don't really care. I've got clients that are going to buy and sell regardless. I've got tons of investors that are going to buy and sell regardless. And we own rental properties and Airbnb properties, and we're going to figure it out no matter what. So I would just encourage you to have a plan. Don't just like move to move. You should never do that. It doesn't matter what the market's doing. Have a plan, and also always prepare for the worst. I see a lot of people that don't prepare for the worst. I'm like, look, you should have had an emergency fund. You should have had a side hustle. You should have had another stream of income, right? You've got to have a plan. If 2020 taught us anything, it's that anything can happen anytime, anywhere, and you're never going to be expecting. If you would have told me back in January or February that a global pandemic was going to happen and basically put everybody out of work and completely kill the retail industry and the travel industry and all these, I would have said you're absolutely insane. So have a plan, prepare for the worst, have an emergency fund, right? Have a side hustle, have another stream of income, and I think you're gonna be just fine. Make sure that you're not buying a house that you're potentially gonna move out of in a year, right? You wanna own it for the long haul. Historically speaking, the real estate industry will always trend upwards, right? So you wanna have it for the long haul in case you do see some sort of temporary downward trend that eventually it'll take hopefully a V-shaped recovery, but at the worst case, a U-shaped recovery, and eventually we'll get out of it, right? And if you own for a long enough period of time and you don't have to sell in a down market, then you'll be just fine. So hopefully this video helped you in some way, shape, or form. If I didn't cover something, please just let me know down below before you smash the dislike button. It's kind of hard sometimes to make videos that cover every single topic. Okay, I do the very best that I can do. So I really appreciate if you just smash the like button instead and let me know down below what it is that I missed or what it is that you liked. I would greatly appreciate it. And normally on my channel, I'm talking about, like I said, real estate, the stock market, how to make money, save money, invest your money, maybe some stuff like this, some trending topics or whatever. So I would really appreciate it if you would check my next video out, and I look forward to seeing you there.